The film poster behind me, I know a lot of your folks are listening, so they don't know what this looks like, but the movie that came out called Soul on Fire has a picture of a silhouette of a guy with his arms in the air, like celebrating some great accomplishment. But it's his backside. And when you look more closely, it's actually a mosaic of every single person in the film that emptied themselves into Little John and later on Big John. And it's why he became what he became in life. In other words, Soul on Fire is a story of heroes. JohnOLeary is just not one of them. Too often, I think we are the heroes in our own stories, and that's fine, I guess. But man, it's not a story I want. I want to be on the ride with some other heroes. I want to be on the journey, impacting someone else's life, serving, making a difference. If that's true, then you also recognize the hero we long for is not Superman. The hero we long for is a good parent. It's a good sibling. It's a neighbor who responds when you're out of milk. It's a nurse, it's a caregiver, it's a radio announcer, it's a spouse, it's a child. It's ordinary people who live their life so well that they change your life because of them.
Welcome to the show. I'm Scherr, host of Business Minds Coffee Chat, where you get a captivating look inside the minds of game changers, risk takers, and visionaries who turn ideas into breakthroughs that shake up the world. Our mission is to give you fresh ways to think that spark growth in your business and life so you can make a mark that lasts. I'm so excited about our conversation today. I know it's going to be a great one. I did want to mention something to you that I didn't mention before we started recording. So I happen to live in Florida. We have a local connection that was involved in your movie. I didn't realize that Chris Bowler and his wife were connected with you, that you and Chris, I understand, were childhood friends?
Yes. Chris Bowler is as good a man as I've ever met. And I happened to go to grade school with him. He's the kind of kid in fourth grade who would come by and visit me in the hospital. That's a scary situation for most kids. Yeah. Kind of kid who was there when I came home from the hospital to celebrate my homecoming. He was my best friend in grade school, high school, college, and then when the opportunity to invest in Soul on Fire showed up in front of him. The reality with film is you are not going to get your money back. I mean, in this case, but miraculously, we got picked up by Sony and it's theatrical release, and Chris will get his money back. Maya will get her money back, thank God. But they didn't see it as that. They saw it as an opportunity to serve, to make a difference, to make their mark on the lives of those around. And so that is Chris's heart for others. That's Maya's heart for others. And I'm blown away that you know those guys.
Yeah, I think that's so fantastic. And I actually called, I left him a message to just let him know that, I'm excited to go see the movie. I believe he went to the premiere, at least that's what I heard.
Yes.
And yeah, great. And, but I left him a message just to let him know that you were coming on the podcast again in about a week or so. And I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation. So always love to find those small connections that really create ripple effects. Now, I want to start here because I understand that you also had actually gone to speak to his team at his business. And I wanted to talk a little bit about your speaking life, because your new movie, Soul on Fire, which obviously tells the story of what happened with you and kind of leads up to where you are today. But when I think about you today, the impact that I see and that I feel comes through your ability to engage with people, your ability to be able to connect with people on a soul-to-soul level, heart-to-heart, and not only inspire, because inspiring is one thing, but actually moving people to action, helping them be able to see a better future for themselves and inspiring them to move in that direction with action. So let's talk a little bit about your speaking life and what is that feeling like for you today when you're on stage and whether it's in front of a business, whether it's on stage in front of thousands of people. What's that experience like for you? And how much prep work goes into that for you today?
Wow. So there's a lot there. We'll start with the fact that you're interviewing an introvert right now.
Mm,
And not only that, you're interviewing a guy who doesn't like bright lights, doesn't like the sound of the word I or JohnOLeary or me. So my heart is not to champion how great I am. So then why do this? Like, why do this work? Well, we've learned over time that this story is convicting, that when people hear the story of what little JohnOLeary went through, not so much from his perspective, but from the perspective of those who served, those who showed up, the love they gave, the mercy they offered, the example they were, the love that changed this child's life and breathed life and possibility back into him, that it liberates them to do likewise in their lives. And so I'm able to do this work because it's not about me at all. And then you talked about, John, you're engaging. Well, if that's true, it's because I cared far more for the audience than I do for myself. I'm not out there for ego. I'm not out there for cash. I'm not out there to hear the applause. I'm out there because I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to be picked back up. I know what it's like to be challenged, to grow and to dream and to pray and to fight. And I know that when others receive that same challenge and someone who holds their hands and walks with them toward accomplishment, we can do mighty things. So at the end of the speech, this is ultimately why I do what I do.
okay.
The line forms, whether it's an executive group of 12, a prison of 600, or an auditorium of 25,000, the line forms afterwards with people coming up to say hello, but it always begins with the statement, John, it's nothing like your story, but. And then they open up their bipolar diagnosis, they open up their cancer treatment, they open up their bankruptcy, they open up the abuse they face as a child, they open up what their own child is going through.
Mm.
And so there's an author named Henry Nouwen who wrote, what is most personal and private is most universal and sacred. What is most personal and private is most universal and sacred. So the very thing you think is your thing and your thing alone, once it's redeemed and you can share it without ego to lift up others, others will grab onto that and open up to you in ways they do not open up to their own spouse sometimes.
Mm.
So we have like one-to-one counseling sessions, if you will, hundreds at a time. Because when you love the one in front of you, they know when they're seen and heard and respected and challenged. And we get to do that at Mass. So that's awesome. And then the final thing you asked was preparation.
Yeah.
Man, I've been doing the work as a speaker for 21 years, that gives you a lot of reps. 2,700 speeches, but a lot more in the mirror, a lot more into a little radio recorder, a lot more in the shower. I still practice every talk. I still deliver it in my mind every single time before I go out. We still serve every client with their needs, not mine. We still have pre-calls with every client to listen to what their version of success is, not mine. And so by the time I hit the stage, I'm able to understand the hopes in the room and the struggles in the room, what they've heard in the past, what they want to do in the future. And by incorporating just a little bit of that mixed in with the reps we've done in the past, we can meet them where they are and challenge them to become a far better version of themselves.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. As I think about the line of audience participants who are standing there waiting for the opportunity to share some words with you or thank you or maybe have you sign a book, as you think about the impact that you have on those people's lives, first of all, that's an awesome responsibility. It's just so big in magnitude when you think about it. But those conversations, if you think back, what is one of the most challenging or most remarkable conversations that you recall? Obviously, you don't have to give specific details, but something about the conversation was just so touching, endearing, different. Can you think of one in particular?
I'm flooded with conversations in particular. Two come to mind immediately, but there's so many. I spoke at a prison, and the lights got cut off halfway through. So I'm one with 100 guys around me, and every one of them is twice my size or more. There's one chaplain in the room and maybe two guards. So it's 3 against 100 if things go south. Lights cut. There was sirens went off outside. So then now we're in lockdown. So none of us are going anywhere. Pitch black. And I don't know exactly what to do. And then I hear from the back of the room, one of the inmates yell out, "Keep going, man." And in pitch black, I just kept delivering this keynote of what it felt like to go through this fire, who showed up, what they did, the example they were, the mighty impact they were in my life. Lights eventually kick back on. Eventually guards come in. They make all these guys go back to their cells, but not before these inmates gave me a standing ovation, which is incredible. This is a tough group. I went back there years later to speak to the same group. And this time they made me a sign, and it's actually the quote you opened up the broadcast with. It hangs right outside my doorway. I can read it right here. It says, "You can't always choose the path you walk in life, but you can always choose the manner in which you walk it." Right outside my doorway. And it's signed by 100 inmates. So I had the opportunity of speaking to these guys in pitch black, came back into their lives years later, and one of the quotes I dropped on them, they then picked back up, they lived out, and now they're dropping on me with their handprints all over it. That's pretty awesome.
Wow.
Another story I thought of was we had a chance to speak in El Salvador at a little place that treats kids who've been burned. And some of these families came more than 5 hours to hear this American speaker try to breathe hope back into their lives. And there was this one little kid who held on to me for a long time afterwards, little scars on his face, God bless him. And he just held on and held on and held on. And then he kept saying the same thing in Spanish. And I don't speak Spanish. He kept saying the same thing. So finally I looked at the gentleman who was doing this tour with me, and I'm like, what is he saying? What's he saying? And he was saying, "Please don't forget me. Mister, please don't forget me." And so we got a picture together, and that hangs up on my wall as well. And man, I haven't forgotten him, and I haven't forgotten them. And I think you take a piece of every conversation with you, even if you get a little bit of like the context of it. We're like trees. You know this, Jay. Like, we're like trees, man. Every experience forms us into the next one. And so, man, I've been blessed for 21 years to have all these people love on me after speeches, which fuels me to keep doing this work.
That is just so amazing. Both of those stories, and obviously thousands of others as well. And the word that comes to my mind as you were sharing about how all of these different experiences make up who we are, the word tapestry was the very first word that came to my mind, or perhaps mosaic. But it speaks to the importance of connection, the importance of relationship, the importance of opening up, of authenticity, of, as you talk about, sharing your story. And sometimes that involves opening wounds that are not easy to talk about or to address. But the moment we do it, there's a different type of connection that's formed. There's almost like a bridge that bridges the gap between the person that you want to show up as, or who you think other people may need you to be, and the person who you truly are. And then you can grow from there. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're spot on. I think in addiction, for those of us who've been through it, this idea of name it to claim it, you can't possibly recover unless you're able to embrace what you're trying to move from and move toward. And so as a society, I think we do a pretty good job with dream boards and, what's your goal for 2025 and 26, and what do you want to be with your weight and finances? And good, man, I have goals. Be ambitious, stretch yourself, keep climbing. Why not? One life. And at the same time, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to move forward in life with any real intentionality if you're not able to also look back and claim that. So this idea of like optimism is usually intended only for future looking people. But there's also something beautiful and redemptive about being optimistic about your past. That doesn't mean sugarcoating everything, but I'm highly optimistic about a little 9-year-old kid who got burned. I'm highly optimistic how amputations of his fingers were used for good. I'm highly optimistic that physical therapy delivered in a broom closet because it was too painful and the screams were too loud, affecting all the other patients, was actually good. And so there is something beautiful about being able to claim where we are and have been in our lives in order to pour the foundation, and then we can leap forward.
Okay, so let me ask you a question on that point about being able to look back at your own story. And this would be for all of us, right? Not just your story, but all of us, our story. Looking back and being able to see those experiences, those things that we experienced in our life, and frame them in such a way that we can see the positive in it, right? We can see that I'm grateful for this. This actually helped me in this particular way. So for you personally, was that something, John, that you had to work on to get to that point? Or was it something that you had already had a mindset developed around? So you immediately saw that this is happening for me, not to me.
I mean, that's like kind of new age thinking from 2020, 2016. I don't know when kind of we started using that phraseology.
Yeah.
It certainly was not the phraseology of a 9-year-old. This was happening to me for sure. And it was not what I wanted to happen to me. And my favorite question back then, Jay, was why me? Why? I mean, you saw it in the film, like why me?
Sure.
And
Right.
a scene that wasn't written in the script, so it's certainly not in the film, but it's a good one, man. Maybe it should have been. It was the day before I went back to school, and I was a victim. I'm in a wheelchair. My fingers are gone. I have scars from my neck to my toes, and I know everybody's going to make fun of me because life happened to me. You know, we live in a victim society right now. It's almost like we celebrate it. So life happened to me. And I'm asking my dad the question, why me, Dad? Why this thing? So unfair. My dad, who's a veteran and a hero of mine, had finally had enough of this. So he stands up, he shuts the bedroom door, comes back in, puts his hands on my legs. Tough guy, looks me square in the eyes and says, John, dang it, why not you? This terrible thing has happened in your world, and if you want to be a victim to it for the rest of your life, have at it. No one will blame you. And then he said, or, John, you can be a victor. And every room we roll you into, or maybe one day you walk into it, people will look up in awe at what you've overcome and what you're doing now. And then my awesome dad says, victim or victor, your choice, not mine. He kissed me on the forehead, stood up, walked out of that room, Jay, and left a 10-year-old to wrestle with ultimately like life's question. And I wrestle with it again today, man. Like my life is imperfect. Trust me. Ask my wife and kids. Ask my mother, who's now a widow from earlier this summer. Like life is hard. Victim or victor? Your choice, not mine. And the way we decide that determines not only how we view our past, it determines where we go next. So this isn't about being Pollyanna. Saying, oh gosh, yeah, you dealt with that abuse and that's hard, but no, it's not about being Pollyanna. It's about recognizing you can't move forward until you embrace yesterday. And in embracing it and in learning from it, you can build a tomorrow that you could not build otherwise.
Wow. That's incredible. So in life's most challenging moments for you today, and with all that we see of you on social media, in the news and magazines, on the big screen, on your podcast, the stories we hear, you face challenges today. You just gave a few of those, right? But in those toughest moments, that victim versus victor, are those the words that you hear in those moments? Are those is that kind of the go-to,
Yeah.
phrase that you hear in your dad's voice, or are there other
There's
words
two
or
others actually.
conversations? What are the others?
One is my dad's voice. So my dad, as you know, is my hero, and my dad greeted everything with the expression, "I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it." And you heard that 3 times in the film, and I heard it a lot more than that, sometimes audibly. But my dad just embraced everything. "I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it," is how he rolled into life. Said differently, there's a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. on my wall. King said, "It's hard for me to like the man who's kicking me in the head when I'm on the ground." And then I realized I don't have to like him, I just have to love him. So I think that idea of like loving where you are, loving the flight delay, loving the argument with one of the kids, not liking it, but loving the fact that you have this moment, loving that unwanted diagnosis, loving the red light, loving life changes how you show up in it. So that's one thing I try to say, man, I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. That's huge for me. The second thing is my mission statement. I think we went through this on our previous call, but it's been 3 years, so I can't remember for sure. But my operating statement for life, we call it an ignition statement around here. I choose to thrive because God demands it. My family deserves it. The world is starved for it. Let's roll. No excuses. So I'm gonna say that again because like right now
Please.
they have me on a crazy media tour, tons of states, tons of travel, tons of speeches, tons of podcasts, and it's crazy. How do you keep showing up though? God demands it. Family deserves it. The world is starved for it. Let's roll. No excuses. And then I come home and I'm jet lagged and I'm burned out and I'm fried and I just want to disappear. But I got to love my wife and I got to be there for my mom and I got to lift up these 4 kids. How do you do that well? Well, I choose to thrive because God demands it. Family deserves it. The world is starved for it. Let's roll. No excuses. So that little mission statement, ignition statement, statement of fact is my operating statement that gets me to show up even when I don't want to, and also informs how I show up when I don't feel like it. Because right now, and you know this, Jay, like we're big into feelings. How do you feel? Well, you got to follow your truth, and if you feel like crap, stay like crap. Nah. Man, I think feelings are cheap.
Hmm.
I think sometimes we need to tell our feelings where to go. And I had tough love a lot as a kid, and I have a lot of tough talks with myself now as a man because my job is to serve the ones in front of me. And sometimes that's me, but frequently it's a child, it's a wife, it's a flight attendant, it's someone else who just might need attention more than I need it myself.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love the fact that you call it an ignition statement. So for all of you that are watching and listening right now, you just heard that ignition statement from John 2 times, very powerful. My challenge to you is, what is your ignition statement? What is your call to purpose? What is the statement or the words that you're going to use or that you're going to listen to in those moments when you're tired, when you're exhausted, when you feel like you've given everything that you can give, when you feel like there's nothing left in the tank, or you don't want to get up today, right? Because there's too much going on in the world, too much happening in the news. What is going to be your statement? What are you going to say to yourself? Because I could tell you right now, that one is incredibly powerful. And I love the fact that you, as you have grown up, that you're talking to yourself, right? You're still saying words that you need to hear. The words may change because you mature, right? Your
Jay, I may have
vocabulary
problems,
changes.
man. I talk to myself all day long. I must be a lonely man, but
Oh,
so it's not only me. I talk to God, and I think it's important to speak and to listen, both to yourself and also to your creator, whatever that may look like in your world. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I believe God cares. I, I believe God has a sacred mission for each of us. I believe we have royal blood coursing through our veins. Like this is big stuff that informs how I read headlines. Because if you don't have some belief system bigger than the headlines of the day, then why would we be at all surprised that we've never been more depressive and more negative and more certain that the American dream is dead and gone?
mm,
But I believe in something bigger than that. I believe in something far bigger than what CNN says about my life.
here, here. So I want to talk about heroes for a moment because you've alluded to this more than once. And I know that there are plenty of people in your life who have been heroes, who are currently heroes. You mentioned one of the big heroes in your life being your father. And your father recently passed. My father passed away a year ago. He was certainly one of my big heroes. So many incredible lessons. Miss him dearly. But speak to the power of heroes and having heroes in your life, and the fact that not. And I'm also thinking about mentor and mentee, those relationships, right?
Yeah.
So why it's important to have heroes in our lives, but also to be a hero or a mentor for others.
So the film poster behind me, if I know a lot of your folks are listening, so they don't know what this looks like, but the movie that came out called Soul on Fire has a picture of a silhouette of a guy with his arms in the air, like celebrating some great accomplishment. But it's his backside. And when you look more closely, it's actually a mosaic of every single person in the film that emptied themselves into Little John and later on Big John. And it's why he became what he became in life. In other words, Soul on Fire is a story of heroes. JohnOLeary is just not one of them. I love that. And so that's important to recognize. Too often, I think we are the heroes in our own stories, and that's fine, I guess. But man, it's not a story I want. I want to be on the ride with some other heroes. I want to be on the journey, impacting someone else's life, serving, making a difference. So this film celebrates that. If that's true, then you also recognize the hero we long for is not Superman. It's actually not Luke or his dad, Anakin, or the daughter. It's not that. The hero we long for is a good parent. It's a good sibling. It's a neighbor who responds when you're out of milk. It's a nurse. It's a caregiver. It's a radio announcer. It's a spouse. It's a child. It's ordinary people who live their life so well that they change your life because of them. They're not exceptional, other than the fact they just kept consistently showing up. So I like the idea of redefining the role of a hero from wearing a cape and blue tights and red tighty-whities to being the type of person who just smiles at someone else, who holds the door open, who looks at the barista and says, "How you doing?" And don't order right away. You actually look to care and listen and reflect. And by the way, I challenge you, your listeners and viewers, do that next time you get a coffee. They will look at you like something's wrong with you, because I promise you, you will be the first person that day who cared about them in that line. You want to be a hero? Start loving the one in front of you. Watch what happens. So in a world that is as divided as the one we currently live in, and as pessimistic as the one we live in, to show up as a hero, man, that's a game-changing thing to do, and it costs you nothing.
That is so true and so powerful. And I know personally that I have been blessed many, many times over by incredible heroes, mentors, those who have poured so much into me and so much into my life. And interestingly enough, in most of those cases, unless it was a professional mentor-mentee relationship,
Right.
most of them expected nothing in return other than, if I'm going to pour into you, the only thing that I would ask is that you just listen.
Yeah.
Just listen. Just listen.
So good.
John, let's I want to just briefly talk about the experience of making Soul on Fire, actually seeing your own story, your book on fire come to life, and what that it must have been somewhat surreal, but give us maybe kind of pull the curtain back a little bit. And what did it feel like for you actually being involved in making that movie?
So it's so surreal to have a film made about your life. We'll start there. And I
Okay.
also think, Jay, like if someone says they should make a movie about my life, you probably should run away from that person. Because it's such a strange thing. Like who thinks they're worthy of a film? I don't. I don't. So when they first reached out and said, we'd like to do this, I said yes, never thinking it would happen. It just a mountain too far. And it slowly progressed forward. And then it was going to die on the vine because of funding. So my wife and I started talking, and I've reached out to my board of advisors, and we recognized if we think this thing should happen, if we think the world might benefit from a message like this, then get involved. So we did in a major way. We raised the funds. We then had to hire a director. His name was Sean McNamara. He did Reagan last summer, and before that, Soul Surfer, and he's done 50 films and 150 television shows. Sean's a successful guy, and humble, and just wants to create work that reminds people they can get through the struggles they face right now. All of his work is about telling true stories of overcoming. So Sean's our director. Then we needed to hire some actors. You might have mentioned like William H. Macy plays Jack Buck, and Joel Courtney, who's well known among younger folks, plays me. And John Corbett from Sex and the City, and My Big Fat Greek Wedding, like real actors, man, step forward. And then we had to shoot somewhere, like so LA, or they do a lot of movies in Canada, in Vancouver, but we shot in St. Louis on site where it happened. So the scenes you see of JohnOLeary's fire were shot in the actual house where it happened. The scenes you see when JohnOLeary's older and he's in college are shot at St. Louis University, where I met my wife. When she and I are married years later in the film, that is actually shot in the church where we were married. And the details are so accurate that the girl portraying Beth even wore Beth's wedding dress. So
Really?
it's just to be part of that process, the writing, the creativity, the invitation, the fundraising, the promotion of this thing, selling it ultimately to Sony and a firm. And then opening weekend, we had the number 5 movie in the country, box office wise, was Soul on Fire, which is cool. But the number 1 rated film in the country, according to the audience, was Soul on Fire. So people
Fantastic.
are being moved by this story.
Absolutely. So for all of you that are watching and listening right now, if you, by the time this episode comes out, if you have not already seen Soul on Fire, do yourself a favor. Please go out and see it. It is not only such a powerful, inspiring, moving movie, it will change you. By the time you walk out of that theater, you will not be the same person you were when you walked in. That I can assure you. So, John,
That's awesome.
I would love it if you would give all of us, including me, everyone that's watching and listening right now, I would love it if you would give us all a challenge. What is something that you would challenge us to do starting right away?
So I think it's 3 things. The first is to take inventory of your blessings daily. If we wake up and grab our phone and go to work, it's almost impossible to recognize why you work in the first place. So the very first thing we should recognize each day is begin that day with a profound sense of gratitude. And candidly, like I don't love the idea of people saying, man, you don't even know my life. Like that's true, but thank God you have it. We live, it's not perfect, but you find a place in history you want to move to. You go and turn into the page. You won't. You'll come right back to where you are right now, broken and all, but this is where you want to be. So recognize that fact. Secondly, you find a place around the country or the world you would rather be, and you'd come right on back to where you are again, in all likelihood. So start where you are. Start with the gifts that you have. Start with the blessings that maybe too often we take for granted. So that's the first thing. Take inventory daily. The second thing is it changed my life 21 years ago when a pastor said, your life is a precious, priceless gift. And you've got one job now. It is simply to say yes to being used for good. What in my case that led to is the following day when a Girl Scout invited me to speak, I did it. And it led to a second and onward from there. But if you can just be bold enough when opportunities present themselves to say yes, Don't be too strategic or tactical, or make sure you're recording on Facebook. Just do the thing, watch what happens, and then build compound interest. So when you do this over days, weeks, months, years, you will look back at a life you hardly recognize. So say yes to being used for good. And then the third and the final thing is the question my friend Jack Buck, he's the radio announcer for the St. Louis Cardinals. He had a Hall of Fame career and a Hall of Fame life. The question that guided his generosity was, what more can I do? And he would ask the question every night. So if you're looking for one more takeaway or a specific next right step, it might be to grab a 99-cent journal, grab an even cheaper pen from, steal from a hotel room, grab a pen, and then just track the answers to the question, what more can I do? And do one thing different tomorrow than you did today in your marriage, in your singleness, with the addiction, with the dream, your finances, for your parents, for that busted relationship with your sibling you haven't spoken to her in 11 years. Like, whatever the thing is, what more can I do pushes us to do things we would not have done otherwise. And to that compound effect again, you do that for a week and you are a different person one weekend. Stack that for a month, then do it for a quarter. Watch what happens.
So good. That's such a fantastic challenge. So for all of you, inventory of your blessings daily, say yes to being used for good, and what more can I do? And I hope that the two words that you're thinking about right now, as John shared that challenge with you, is challenge accepted. So get after it. Do it. Because in order to change, you have to change, right? We have to learn to take action. So I love that. Yeah. So, John, as we are wrapping up our conversation, I could talk to you for hours. I know I could. I want to be respectful of your time. So if you had the opportunity to sit on a park bench with any one person who is currently still with us or no longer living, and you could ask that person only one question. First, who is it that you would want to sit with on that park bench? And then what is the one question that you would ask?
Man, I don't do well painted into boxes, so I have room for two people. I got to grab my dad. And I wouldn't even want to ask him a question. I would just sit with him. When my dad lived, he had Parkinson's disease for so long, and he lost his voice essentially for the last 10 years of his life. And it used to kind of almost bother me that, I lost my dad because he wasn't the man that he once was. And near the end of his life, I learned to finally embrace the gift of his presence. And in particular, in the last months of his life, and in particular, in the last hours of his life, just the presence. So I would just park, my dad's parked over to my left. Stay quiet, Dad. Don't say a word, just hang with me. And then over to my right, I would probably have St. Paul. I know your listeners are very diverse in faith backgrounds. I'm a Christian believer. And man, I want to be so bold in my life. I want to have a great marriage. I want to have great kids. I want to build a great business. I want to impact a lot of lives for good. But Paul had some type of experience where half of the New Testament is written because of him. You don't have to be a Christian to recognize, that dude must have been a freaking force. Half of the book that the Christian believers hold on to now, from the New Testament perspective, was written by one guy's hand, one guy's perspectives. And so the question I would ask him is, what fueled you forward? Because I think that essentially is the answer that we all need in life, of like, what fueled you?
Thank you for sharing that. And as I was listening to you talk about sitting on the bench with your dad and just having your dad's presence, it reminded me that so much can be said without words. So much can be said without words. I think about being fully present with someone, being where my feet are. You've probably heard that saying before, but really being there in the moment and just listening with your heart. It doesn't have to be words, but the feeling, the emotions, the touch, the everything else that comes with it, it is just remarkable and beautiful. And for all of you, I hope you have taken away some very valuable lessons through this conversation. And John, is there a question that I didn't ask that you would have liked to have been asked, or something that you think is important for us to touch on that we didn't already talk about?
The reality is right now we're promoting a film, and I think the people would want to know, why should I go? Why would I waste my time? Hey, it's like $12. I mean, really, John, I'll wait till it streams. And
Hmm.
here's my encouragement. Number one, Hollywood is a democracy, and what you vote for, they will give you more of. And right now, candidly, like, our culture is just busted. It is just so fractured and downtrodden. And then we vote for alien movies and video game movies and horror movies. And I just encourage your listeners and viewers, vote for a true movie of overcoming, of family values, of incredible resiliency, of honest heroes showing up and being part of someone else's miracle. Because that is a worthy story to vote for right now, in part because of this story, but in part because, as the sirens go by my office right now, Hollywood will give us more of those stories then. So what we vote for, they will give us more of. Vote for Soul on Fire with your time and your dollars now. That's the first thing I would say. Second thing is, then they would say, well, what's in it for me? My father's final words to me were, what a gift. What a gift. And they were spoken actually in a movie theater. We had an early preview of Soul on Fire. And I asked him what he thought about the movie. My dad leaned back and whispered, what a gift. We got him out of the movie theater, back into his car, back into his home. 2 days later, he came down with some illness, never recovered, passed away. So the final words really I heard from my dad were, what a gift. Our expectation is that when people leave the film, that they roll back out to their cars or they dance out to their cars, proclaiming that truth in their lives. What a gift. What a gift. So if you are a little bit beat down, if you're a little bit busy, if you're a little bit cynical, if you're a little bit, you're not sure what the markets are going to do, or AI might bring your way, or the world might burn next, leave it all behind for 2 hours, enter into a darkened room and community, be broken in the best of ways, be filled back up, and then dance back out to your vehicle, convicted that your life is a gift and the best is yet to come.
So good. What a gift. And that's exactly how I felt when the movie ended. I got up out of my seat, and with my body just emotionally and physically drained yet inspired, it was definitely a gift. And I walked out of that theater and could not wait to tell other people about it, because, as I mentioned to all of you already, you will walk out of there a different person than you were when you walked in. So, John, I want to thank you so very much for joining us today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. Again, what a gift. You're such a beautiful human being. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your art. Thank you for bringing your movie to life and sharing such a wealth of knowledge and wisdom learned on this episode. I truly am grateful. Thank you so very much.
Jay, you're a great man. Thanks for the time again.
Absolutely. And for all of you, I want to thank you so very much for watching and listening. And I do have a quick favor. Would you please take just a moment to leave us a review and rate this episode? Let us know what you thought about this particular conversation with John. And to listen to more episodes, all you need to do is visit jscherbusinessconsulting.com, click that podcast button, And my friends, until next time, keep learning and growing. Make sure you run out to see Soul on Fire and pick up a copy of On Fire and In Awe. And we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care, everybody.